Welcome to another Mental Health Mondays with Kate. Today is episode 13, and I'm going to be introducing CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. So anytime you go to meet a therapist, I strongly encourage you, if you haven't already researched it, to ask the therapist what modality they use. There are a lot of different ways to conduct therapy, a lot of different approaches. CBT is but one of them. It's my standby, it's kind of my go-to. And so last week when I talked about changing, or not changing, but tracking your thoughts, that is a method within CBT. And so today, I'm going to just give a brief introduction of it, and then in the coming weeks, we are going to talk more about patterns of limited thinking and how to begin changing those for positive results. So, what is cognitive behavioral therapy? What is CBT? The premise is this: our patterns, our behaviors are a direct result of the way that we think, the things that we tell ourselves. So the theory is that certain patterns and thought lines are so ingrained that we get to a behavior without conscious awareness of what has led us there. And so what we're doing in CBT is trying to help determine what those underlying patterns of thought are and how they then result in the behavior that we want to change or eliminate. So think about the child who is acting out of character, throwing tantrums, skipping school, really smart in school, like during regular class, and then sits down for a test and causes disruptions and doesn't do well, right? That's out of character. What I've noticed is it's not very often that we have the presence of mind to ask why, to say what is happening in this moment, what has brought you to this place. I remember years ago seeing a school that started kind of a timeout reset room as part of its disciplinary process. So instead of jumping straight to detention and, all the path that can create for children and teens, it was offering this kind of mental reset. And part of the requirement was, if you went there, you had to talk about what was happening. And it made my therapist's heart very, very happy, because finally someone was asking these children, what's happening? What's going on? Something at home last night or this morning, something with a friend or a bully, right? Lots of options. So CBT is all about, we need to, if there's a behavior happening, we have to start unpacking what feeling led to the behavior and what thought led to the feeling that led to the behavior. So we're kind of working backwards a little bit. This is why it's so important to pay attention to your internal record player, because it is doing things that you may not be aware of, and it is so important to garner that awareness because it's the way to make changes. So let's just be very clear that change can happen. Okay. One of the reasons as a therapist that I really like CBT is I personally think that it is supported in my faith in Christianity. Paul writes a lot about encouraging people to change their thoughts, think on new things, and that to me is an advocacy for what CBT is doing. Our brains can do things outside of our control, but we can, when we become aware of it, take that back. And so that's what this is all about. So let's do it for instance. Maybe I'll use one of my own examples. It's probably going to be easier. I used to have patterns of showing up at school or at work really cranky, like really cranky, and not really know why, or have a really, have a good day going, and then all of a sudden it's a really bad day. And it wasn't until I was in my first few months of private practice that I realized, might be time to turn the tables on yourself and do a little work. And what I learned is that I was feeding myself a lot of false information and a lot of extreme thinking, making situations much bigger and much more impactful than they needed to be. And so if something bad happened directly to me, somebody said something I didn't like, somebody cut me off in traffic, right? Whatever, just random things. If I hurt myself, that could have been recipe for me to kind of lose the entire day, just be cranky. And so what I had to start doing was, anytime I had one of those days, to really think about, okay, what's happening? What am I telling myself? And is anything I'm telling myself true? Or can it be changed? And when I began doing that, I also had to do one of my least favorite things as a client, but one of my favorite things as a therapist. And that was engage in the theory of choice, right? That I can choose in those moments. I can choose if the moment that's coming to mind right now is when I dropped a jar of peanut butter on my toe. That hurt real bad. I can choose to let that one incident, dropping a jar of peanut butter on your foot, I can choose in that moment to let that define the rest of my day and let me just be cranky and miss who knows what. Or I can do all the things you have to do to expel the energy and the pain, maybe some choice words, and then decide to move on and assess, okay, it's not broken. It feels like it might be, but it's not. So what, are you done for the day, or you gonna just realize that maybe this is not the worst thing in the world that's happening to you right now and move forward and not let it define the day and not let it steal all the good things that are still out there? That's what CBT is about. CBT is about looking at patterns, negative patterns, hurtful patterns, and tracking the behavior. And then as you track the behavior, write down, where was I, what was I doing, who was I with? And then beyond that, unpacking, okay, what was going on in that situation? What were those people saying or doing? What was I saying or doing? And eventually we get down to what are called core beliefs. And if our core beliefs are negative, we are going to have that bent that is negative. And it's going to be really hard to find self-esteem, to find value and worth within ourselves and with others. So it's also going to be really difficult to be optimistic and have a positive outlook. And people are, yes, there are pessimists. You can have that kind of outlook, but let me just tell you something. It feels a whole lot better in the body to live from a positive place than to live from a negative place. It just feels better in the body. So CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, all about, if I want to change my behavior, I need to get at what am I telling myself? What are my thoughts that are leading to feelings that are resulting in these behaviors that are not healthy for me, or my relationship, or my job, or whatever it might be? That is CBT in a nutshell. There's, loads of places on the web that you can find more information. Better yet, talk to your therapist about it. Use reputable sources, please. Psychology Today, American Psychological Association. Maybe don't go to a random YouTube channel, unless you can see that the person is trained and licensed. That's what you're looking for. I forgot where else I was going to go. Oh, so next week we are going to start talking about patterns of limited thinking. And so these are some common types of thought that people engage in that can result in unhealthy and unhelpful behavior. And I am confident that as we start unpacking some of these, you'll go, oh yeah, I do that. And then eventually in this month of November, happy November, by the way, eventually in this month, we will begin talking about how to, now that I know what the pattern is, how do I stop it? How do I change it? How do I, in essence, get rid of this record player and change it out for a new one? So as you go about your week, if you find yourself doing something that you really don't like, or that you know is not helpful or healthy, stop for a second, pay attention to what's happening, what's going on, who are you with, what are you telling yourself, what are you feeling? And that will help you begin to engage the process of making some really good positive changes. Until then, be well. And if you haven't subscribed to my website, do so, because if you do, I will send you the November newsletter that had some pretty awesome announcements in it. Just saying. Have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.